Welcome back, scholars of dark folklore. And let's dive straight into today's explainer. I am taking on the mantle of the Bard Knight today to recount my own alchemical vengeance against the court. We're going to explore a really grim tale, a moment where I stood right before the throne and proved to the High Court that their pristine architecture isn't just stone and mortar, it's actually a profound, highly weaponized system of social control. I literally stood in the vast royal halls, looked the king in the eye, and told him his gold leaf and velvet are an absolute lie. As the Bard Knight, I demanded the court ignore those highly refined myths they constantly tell themselves. We have to strip all that away and examine the true, terrifying, skeletal bones that actually form the foundation of our society. I asked them to just look away from their glittering propaganda for 1 second. Instead, I held up a cracked mirror that I'd found down in the mud. I said, look right here. We have to recognize the bitter fertilizer of our own history, you know? It's the very rot and ruin of those excluded lives that feeds their immense power at the top. Part 1, Palace of Ancestral Fear. I made sure to warn the king that his grand palace is no sanctuary. It's a sprawling, Gothic mechanism of control. High society constantly attempts to ignore these messy, brutal designs, right? They desperately want to forget the stained blueprints of the past and the literal walls of exclusion and fear that keep them so comfortable. But today we are dragging that grim truth straight out from the ancestral vaults. So, as I strummed these harsh, dissonant chords on a lute made of dull lead, an instrument humming with the creative spark of 1,000 dismissed lives, the very atmosphere of that great hall transformed. The music completely forced the court to remember the rough sketches of the common lives they have so casually buried beneath their feet. Section 2, Breathing the Suffocating Mist. Now we get into a totally insidious tactic, psychological weight. To really show them their crimes, I took on the role of the High Priest of Memory. I guided the court's minds away from their warm festival lights and forced them deep into the damp catacombs of the kingdom. I showed them how they use the environment itself as a structural containment system. I literally made them feel their historical prejudices as a crushing physical sensation. You see, I showed them exactly how a suffocating mist of guilt physically paralyzes people. The thorns of the past, those ancient stereotypes they built their entire kingdom upon, they don't just exist in the mind. They become a physical weight against the lungs. I whispered to the king, "You cannot fight if you cannot breathe." Section 3, The Perverted Gardener's Harvest. To truly punish them, I acted as a perverted gardener, turning their own methods against them. I asked the king, why exactly do you equate gardening with total destruction? And the answer is chillingly simple. Because, to the court, any uncontrolled growth threatens their absolute power. The high priest searches for the poison of dissent, prunes the dead wood of hope, and uses those very thorns to construct permanent tombs. He ensures his bitter soil yields absolutely nothing but obedience. They systematically sever any vibrant branch of change that dares to reach for the sky. I pointed out to the king how his structural containment is entirely built over the ashes of progress. It's a dark mechanism guaranteeing his rigid status quo is never, ever threatened by the blooming of new disruptive ideas. Section 4, Imprisoned by the Ego. Let's really examine this dark craft. Utilizing the hidden trowel of a venomous grudge, I revealed the soul's darkest masonry to them. I explained how they methodically construct heavy stone walls around the poison of dissent, using iron shackles to trap the pride of the populace. It's all about structural immobilization. I looked the royal court dead in the eye and laid bare their absolute psychological genius. By trapping the pride of dreamers with the cold reality of iron shackles, they literally transform a citizen's very own ego into the permanent cell that holds them. I told the king, you make them the wardens of their own immobilization, forever policing their own boundaries. It's brilliant, and it's horrifying. They force the messy, beautiful design of human potential into a permanent, rigid, and structural conclusion. I made them see how any heroic silhouette is utterly buried beneath the heavy masonry of their ancestral vaults. They neutralize the threat of a better world before it can even take shape.
Section 5. The Stone Silence.
The fire of imagination, that spark of what could be, is entirely extinguished by the cold, heavy iron of what currently is. I explained to the scholars of the court that structural immobilization is truly complete when the visionary forgets the heat of the fire and simply, silently, accepts the chill of the iron. And because of this grim reality, my dark parable to the king did not end with some triumphant chorus. Not at all. It ended with a suffocating stone silence, a chilling silence that serves as a permanent tomb, forever immobilizing the kingdom's brilliant potential underneath layers of Gothic dread. So, I leave you here in the skeletal bellies of the earth with this chilling thought. Will you let your ego remain a prison walled in by heavy masonry? Or will you shatter those stained blueprints of the past and reclaim your creative spark? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, scholars. Never stop questioning the architecture around you.